You wake before the city wakes, the apartment still smelling faintly of last night's coffee and the laundry you promised yourself would get done this weekend. The light through the blinds cuts thin bars across unpaid bills on the kitchen table, notes scribbled with numbers that never quite add up. You know how to do the work. People tell you you're sharp, dependable, capable. Yet you move through the morning like someone walking a path that used to belong to someone else. Familiar steps, small compromises, a quiet pull toward whatever's easiest. At the bus stop you rehearse explanations you've used 1,000 times, the economy, downsizing, I was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and each reason is a soft ribbon that both comforts and constrains. You smile when a neighbor asks how you are. Fine, you say, and it feels true enough. Later, when the apartment is yours again and the evening stretches out, the real conversations come in smaller voices, thoughts that ask why talents are underused, why dreams feel postponed. There is a soft ache, not dramatic but persistent, like a clock ticking just a fraction fast. You blamed hurricanes, markets, bosses, timing. That blame has been a shield and a kind of sorrow. You've learned to be practical, coupons clipped, coffee made at home, quick wins that never quite add up to the life you pictured. Some nights, scrolling through friends' highlight reels, you feel a sting, pride mixed with envy, then a reflexive purchase or a fast comfort becomes the answer for a few hours. Little choices. Minor leaks. They add up without fanfare. Imagine a quiet counselor, someone who isn't there to scold but to point out the invisible seams in your pockets, the slow erosion of time and money you call normal. You aren't helpless, and you aren't alone. There is a promise here. In the next minutes you'll start to see where you really lose money today, not from conspiracies but from patterns. If what I'm saying lands with you, give it a like so this message can find others who need it too, and subscribe, ring the bell, to follow the next step. Soon, a gentler voice will begin to name the leaks, and that naming will change the way you choose. You sit at the kitchen table under the yellow pool of a single lamp, a stack of statements fanned out like a tired deck of cards. The house is quiet except for the refrigerator's hum and the distant buzz of a late-night show. A calm voice, neither thunder nor scold, bends the air beside you. Where do you think your money goes? It asks, and it's not a question meant to shame but to invite honest seeing. He doesn't point at mortgages or taxes first. He lifts one of the statements and traces a line with a finger. 3 streaming services, a gym you stopped using in March, a coffee subscription you forgot to cancel. The light glances off small monthly charges that add up like raindrops on a roof. Tiny leaks, he says, become slow floods. You remember the pride purchases, the new jacket because you wanted to look a certain way, the car detail that felt extravagant but necessary for status. His voice is patient as he names each one: vanity, convenience, fear dressed as reward. Then he takes you to the living room where your phone lies face down on the couch. He lifts it and shows you a montage, an hour of scrolling, impulse buys clicked in the blink between boredom and sleep, promotions that whisper promises when loneliness or stress presses the chest. You were taught to survive scarcity, he says, so you buy quick comfort. But comfort without plan is an expense disguised as relief. You see your calendar next, evenings surrendered to passive distractions, weekends blurred by errands that go nowhere, projects postponed until inspiration dies. Time, he says, is currency. Each minute traded unwisely drains possibility as surely as a withdrawal slips money from an account. The scene shifts, receipts flutter like fallen leaves, apps glow like tiny windows of temptation, and in the quiet you feel both the ache of loss and the strange relief of recognition. He does not leave you in guilt. Instead he draws a simple image, a clay pot with hairline cracks sealed gently with wax. Start small, he murmurs. Find the first leak and mend it. You find yourself nodding, not because you were condemned but because a clearer map has been handed to you. What appears subtle now is visible, what felt out of control is a series of choices. If you want to learn how to patch these leaks step by step, to build habits that hold wealth rather than let it slip, stay with me, and if this landed in you, tap like to say you're ready, subscribe and click the bell so you won't miss the next message that shows how to begin. You sit at the small kitchen table again, a cup gone cold, a phone lit with notifications, a streaming charge, a forgotten membership, a sale you didn't need. The room smells like coffee and unfinished plans. The voice you've been hearing is neither thunder nor scold, it is a steady hand on your shoulder. Where do you feel you lose money most today? It asks, and you find yourself naming things you thought were private, the late-night purchases that promise comfort, the subscriptions that add up like quiet dripping, the impulse to keep up appearances when your heart wants rest. He doesn't punish, he points. He walks you through the receipts like a compassionate accountant. See this pattern? He says, tapping the margin where a subscription renewed every month, where a pair of shoes filled a loneliness for a weekend. The camera of your mind zooms to the little habitual gestures, scrolling until the hour is gone, answering wants as if they carry gospel authority, buying into status to mask an old insecurity. Each leak is ordinary enough to ignore, but together they shape a life. You speak back, a mixture of shame and relief. I didn't know how much, you admit. He smiles as if you've just shared a secret that can now be fixed. Start by naming one leak and closing it, he counsels. Treat your money like a trust, not an enemy. Give every dollar a job. Reserve a small offering to hope, a modest allowance for joy, and a firm veto for the purchases born out of fear. He gives practical rhythms, a weekly review, an auto-pay audit, a 72-hour pause before non-essential buys, and a sacred morning 10 minutes of planning that defends your day from distraction. Around you the ordinary world becomes a training ground. Risk becomes wisdom when measured, pride yields to modesty when you see the cost. Discipline is not deprivation but the skillful tending of seed. You begin to feel light in a way that has nothing to do with money itself, light because choices are no longer strangers but allies. If this settles in your chest, if you feel a small hope unfolding, honor it, like this message to keep it alive, subscribe and ring the bell to keep learning these gentle practices. Ahead, you'll be taught the first 3 habits that will hold you steady for the long haul. The kitchen light spills across a stack of receipts like fallen leaves, and you find yourself tracing the creases with a thought that's almost tender. Each one is a small excuse, a tiny ceremony of comfort. God's voice sits beside you, not thunderous but steady, and names what you have been avoiding. Look at these, he says, and the camera of your mind pulls close to an automatic card charge for a library of apps you barely open, to a premium coffee that tastes of image more than flavor, to the clothes bought for the version of you fear you'll never be. It's not accusation. It's a bedside lamp held over the details you've let slide. You remember the nights of scrolling, bright thumbnails, other lives edited to perfection, and how the hours bled away as your resolve thinned. You are not losing money to fate, he continues, and in the quiet you feel the truth land. You're losing it to habit, to the ways you soothe anxiety with purchases and postpone facing fear with tiny, costly comforts. The scene widens. A friend's laugh in a bar, a new gadget that promises efficiency but creates clutter, a subscription renewed in sleepwalking. Each leak is ordinary, almost invisible, and together they hollow out possibility. There's no shame in the telling, only an invitation. God leans closer and asks, gently, where do you feel you lose money most today? Your answer is honest and small: impulse buys after a long week, streaming services you forget, the prideful purchase that needed applause. He doesn't scold. He maps connections. This purchase once cheered you, that subscription once promised learning. The point is not to punish the past but to reassign it with awareness. As the sun shifts, the room seems to breathe. You can almost see the habits as threads, some taut with purpose, others frayed and dangling. Unravel them and you'll find freed hours, reclaimed budget, the raw materials of a different life. If this moment lands in you, hold it. We'll translate these revelations into practical steps next, simple changes that protect your money and honor your dignity. If this voice helps, like this message and subscribe, ring the bell so you don't miss the next chapter where we begin to repair the leaks together. You sit at the kitchen table while sunlight pours across a stack of unopened envelopes and the phone buzzes with yet another subscription renewal. The house smells faintly of coffee and second-hand regret. God's voice is not thunder this time. It arrives like a calm hand on your shoulder. Where do you feel you lose money most today? You answer aloud to the empty room, and the answer lands, soft and precise. It's in the small, steady exits, the monthly services you never use, the impulse buys that soothe a bad hour, the pride purchases meant to show the world you've arrived, and the hours frittered away scrolling while ideas and income slip past. You begin with one small, surgical change. You open the banking app and, with deliberate fingers, cancel a streaming service you hadn't watched in months. You schedule a weekly 10-minute audit, no judgment, just data, where receipts are matched to intentions. The first week feels like a confession, the second week feels like stewardship. God's counsel keeps coming in the whisper between breaths: give a name to every outgoing, if you can't name its purpose, let it go. It's not austerity, he says, it's authorship, deciding what your money writes into your life. A scene follows, you standing at the closet, holding a jacket bought to impress people who no longer matter. You think of the paycheck that paid for it and the lunch you skipped because you were saving. Instead of shame, there is clarity. You list 3 things you value: security, freedom, and presence, and ask whether that jacket serves them. It doesn't. You sell it and carry the cash to a small ceramic jar labeled emergency, the jar that feels heavier and truer than any impulse purchase ever did. You also establish a ritual for risk. Before any significant expense, you ask 2 God questions: what will this purchase grow? What will it erode? Risk, reframed, becomes a conversation about futures rather than a gamble for immediate feeling. When temptation returns, you set a 24-hour pause, a prayer, a walk, a call to a friend, enough time for impulse to cool and wisdom to speak. Change arrives in increments: cancelled subscriptions, sold clutter, automatic transfers to savings, a weekly budget mapped like a small, loyal city. Relief replaces guilt and slow, honest breaths. You catch yourself smiling at the balance that finally reflects your choices. Ahead, resistance will come dressed as familiarity and flattering lies. If you want to keep going, if this shift feels possible, stay with me. There's a next step that teaches how to hold steady when old habits call your name. And if this has touched you, press like, subscribe, and ring the bell so we walk the next part together. You sit at the kitchen table as morning light slants across a scattering of bills, a coffee cooling in your hands, and your phone buzzing with another tempting ad. The house is quiet, the moment intimate, like a confession. God's voice arrives not as thunder but as a warm presence beside you: look closer. The leaks live in tiny choices that never get named. You lean into the stillness and begin to name them aloud: the week of impulse buys, the subscriptions that whisper convenience, the nights lost to scrolling instead of planning. Each admission is a small lifting of weight. Start with one thing, God suggests, steady and sure. One habit that, if tended, changes the flow. You imagine an elbow of margin around your finances, an emergency fund, a weekly check-in, a no-spend Saturday, as sacred borders. The scene shifts, you tap through apps, cancel 4 subscriptions with a quiet click, you write a single line in a notebook: 30-day money Sabbath, and fold it into your pocket like a promise. A friend calls, their voice hopeful: celebrate small wins. I started with a coffee budget and it built my courage. You laugh, a sound that tastes like relief. The change is cinematic but slow, a time-lapse of mornings where the ritual repeats: 5 minutes of planning, a glance at calendar, a note to transfer a small amount to savings. Pride purchases, once hidden rituals of approval, meet a new boundary. You practice saying, I choose the future, before adding anything to a cart. God watches like a patient gardener, offering metaphors: money is soil, habits are seeds. Water the right seeds, and you begin to grow a canopy of options. You feel steadier. Fear still visits, but it no longer dictates the checkout. You start asking yourself, where do you feel you lose money most today? That honest question becomes a lamp in the dark. If this lands with you, if you sense the possibility, like this moment, and stay with me. Subscribe and tap the bell so you won't miss the next step where we design a 30-day plan together, a practical map to close those leaks and welcome lasting abundance. Dawn finds you at the kitchen table again, the same chipped mug, the same bank app open like a wound. The light slants through blinds, dust motes drifting like tiny ledgers in the air. You trace a monthly charge with your finger, then another, and your chest tightens, not from the numbers themselves, but from the realization that these were choices made in quieter moments: a late-night comfort purchase, a subscription you forgot you had, a prideful upgrade to impress people you barely remember. God's voice, soft as the morning, leans in beside you. You are not defined by what you have lost, he says. You are measured by what you do with what remains. You answer with a whisper, ashamed and hopeful at once. Where do I even start? He points to the simplest, most stubborn truth: map the leaks. The scene shifts to a montage, your handwriting categories on paper, a calendar marked with payday and bill dates, the glow of a spreadsheet born from curiosity rather than judgment. You name each drain aloud: subscriptions, impulse meals, a habit of scrolling until midnight. Saying them strips them of their mystery. The weight lifts a fraction. Then God becomes practical, like a trusted mentor in worn shoes. Build a buffer, he advises. Treat money as a gift, steward it like seed. Risk is not the enemy, reckless is. Measure your risks. Set small, repeatable rituals: one weekly check-in, one auto-transfer to a savings pot, one accountability conversation. You imagine those rituals as a small garden you tend, one watering at a time. The camera lingers on quiet victories: a transfer notification, you smiling at a cancelled subscription, the slow satisfaction of saying no to a pride purchase. The emotional landscape shifts from guilt to steady resolve. Fear still nods in the corner, but it is named now, called out, and no longer puppeteering decisions. A friend appears at the doorway, eyes bright. You look different, they say. You laugh, surprised. I started small, you answer. And I followed what I felt God asking me to do. There is a promise in the air: this is not a miracle lottery, but a practice that compounds. Tomorrow there will be a test, an unexpected sale, a tempting night out, and you will have to choose. If this quiet work resonated with you, like this message and subscribe, ring the bell so you won't miss the next step when temptation arrives and faith meets practice. The lamp throws a warm circle across the table where you've spread last month's statements like a small, intimidating constellation. Rain taps a slow rhythm on the window. You breathe and speak aloud, not to anyone you can see, and a voice answers, not thunderous, but close enough to feel like a hand on your shoulder. Name them, it says. Where do you think the money goes? You start with the obvious: streaming plans you don't watch, an app subscription you forgot was annual, the gym membership you paid for and visited twice. The voice listens without judgment. Then it gently pushes further: what did you buy to prove something? Which purchases quieted a fear for a night but left a hole the next morning? You remember the shoes meant to announce success, the upgrade to a phone that only bought you notifications, the dinners out to keep up appearances. Shame rises and then loosens when the voice reframes it: those were attempts at security. They failed because they were temporary. Security is built, not bought. You feel the shift: shame becomes data. The voice teaches you small, practical rituals: record every expense for 2 weeks, cancel what's unused, create a 24-hour pause before every non-essential purchase, set one automatic transfer to savings the day your paycheck clears. It's not punishment. It's architecture. In the kitchen, the kettle hisses. You practice the first rule immediately: you delete one subscription and schedule a transfer to a tiny, growing emergency fund. Relief isn't dramatic, it's steady, like a leak finally patched. The voice nudges again: reframe risk. Small, repeated discipline compounds more reliably than one big gamble. You imagine your life with different rhythms: a monthly review like a ritual, a modest cushion that makes decisions calmer, generosity that flows without panic because margins exist. The room feels lighter. You realize transformation will be ordinary, daily choices stacked over months. If this unlatched something in you, hold on to that. I'll show you the exact routine to follow next: the daily, weekly, and monthly practices that turn intention into income. If you're ready to keep building, like this message and subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next step. You sit at the kitchen table while sunlight slides across last month's statements like a quiet accusation. The coffee breathes steam into the morning, and your phone buzzes with another charge cleared, one more small leak. God's voice is not thunder now but the warmth of an old friend leaning over your shoulder. Begin where you are. He names the small victories as sacred, canceling one unused subscription, shifting a single purchase from impulse to purpose, setting one automatic transfer to a savings account. Each tiny choice is a stitch in a new life. You test it. Instead of giving in to the quick swell of desire when the notification glows, new shoes, a gadget, you pause and ask aloud, will this serve my story? The answer is quiet, practical. You choose differently. You fold the urge into a plan, 30 days of watching the want, tracking the cost. The $10 impulse becomes a lesson about the habit beneath it. In the grocery store you carry a list like armor. At night you close the laptop and take 10 minutes to review tomorrow's priorities rather than scroll into someone else's highlight reel. These are small rituals, but they reroute your energy. God teaches you to measure risk in wisdom, not fear. A setback becomes an experiment, a budget overrun becomes data. You start an experiment account for learning, books, a course, a conversation, money that grows your skill rather than your anxieties. You practice giving too, gentle generosity that loosens scarcity's grip. The numbers on the spreadsheet inch toward color, not because of a miracle windfall but because your habits have altered their course. There are hard moments, old comforts call like distant music. You answer with compassion for the younger you who used spending to fill empty hours. When doubt rises, God's voice is steady, keep showing up. The horizon moves with you. If the way this feels has helped you see where your money leaks, make a small promise to yourself and to this journey, engage with what lifts you. Like this message if it touched you, subscribe and ring the bell to keep receiving the map and practical steps ahead. Soon you'll take the first 30-day practice together, and the real work of building momentum begins. Morning light slices through the blinds and lands across a scattered table, a mug with yesterday's ring, a stack of unopened envelopes, a receipt folded like a small confession. You sit there, hands wrapped around warmth that steadies the tremor in your chest, and the voice comes again, not thunder, but the steady tone of someone who has watched you stumble and still believes in you. Where are you losing your money? It asks, and you answer honestly for the first time. Not with excuses this time, but with a list that sounds smaller when spoken aloud, a monthly service you never use, the extra trim of your car to impress someone who doesn't notice, the nights of swiping that eat time and impulse. The scene shifts without drama. You are at the grocery store, the bright packaging whispering, the cart filling with small compromises. The voice nudges, choose the essentials. Let your purchases reflect your priorities, not your fears. You feel the old hunger for quick satisfactions loosen. In the parking lot you put the gift-wrapped snack back and walk home with an unspent 20 that feels strangely like respect returned. At the coffee shop, you open your bank app. Rows of subscriptions blink like little leaks. You hear the calm counsel again, stewardship is not stinginess, it's tending what you've been given. You cancel 3 services you never use, set up an automatic transfer to a savings jar, and create a rule, every time you feel tempted to buy for pride, wait 48 hours. The rule is simple, but it becomes a hinge. You practice it that afternoon when an ad promises instant status, you breathe, you wait, and the urge passes like a cloud. Across these small victories, something else changes, time becomes a currency you guard. Evenings once surrendered to scroll and noise are replaced with 30 minutes of reading about investing and 15 minutes on a call with a friend who asks the quiet, sharp questions that keep you honest. You begin a weekly ritual, Sunday ledger, 10 minutes of gratitude for money that served you, 10 minutes of planning for how the rest will serve others. The shame that used to sit heavy at your shoulders lightens into a careful resolve. You are not done. There is a pattern to form, a system to test that will turn these small acts into a life that attracts steady abundance. If this touched you, leave a like with the same calm conviction you've felt today, subscribe and tap the bell to receive the next message, where you will learn the exact, practical plan that stitches these choices into lasting prosperity. Morning light finds you at a small table, a cup cooling beside an open notebook where numbers and names used to blur into guilt. Now they sit like a map, subscriptions circled, impulse purchases underlined, time leaks traced in pencil. You breathe, and in that quiet the voice you've come to trust returns, not thunder, but a steady hand on your shoulder. Notice where you spend your love, it says, and you realize money always follows attention. The revelation is gentle, but its power is real. You remember the moments of shame, the cramped decisions at the end of the month, the stories you told yourself about bad luck. Those stories are not dismissed, they are acknowledged, rewoven into something useful. You begin to treat each expense like a little covenant, one envelope for essentials, one for growth, one for surprise. You automate what steadies you, saving before the temptation arrives, and you schedule joy so it no longer hides in reckless purchases. There are small ritual victories, a cancelled subscription that once felt indispensable, a phone call instead of a costly outing, a slow walk that replaces scrolling. A friend drops by and sits across from you, surprised by the calm in your hands. What changed, they ask. You smile and tell them about the ledger you keep, about the questions God asked you. Where does your heart rush for instant comfort? What are you afraid to invest in, and how answering them turned fear into curiosity? Not every day is tidy. You face setbacks, an unexpected bill, a temptation that surfaces like seasonal weather. But now you have the tools to steward what you have and the courage to ask for help. This is not a sermon about luck, it's a practiced course of small decisions that compound. Each choice becomes testimony. You can be disciplined without being harsh, generous without being reckless, ambitious without losing peace. If this felt like a light in a long room, then let it guide your next steady steps. I promise to keep bringing clear, compassionate guidance, practical acts and gentle questions that help you protect and grow your resources. If this touched you, give it a like from your heart, subscribe and ring the bell so these messages meet you exactly when you need them next. Where do you feel you lose money most today?